You ever notice how some moments split your life in half, before and after? This was one of them, though I didn't know it yet. I was finishing dinner, something I'd spent 2 hours on. Lamb shanks, his favorite. The kitchen smelled like rosemary and garlic and wasted effort. I was standing at the sink when the phone rang. It was Mark, my husband. The man I'd said yes to 3 years ago in front of 200 people who all clapped like I'd made the right choice. Sarah? Hey, got a second? His voice had that office tone. Professional. Distant. The one he used when he was about to tell me something that wasn't actually a question. Of course, I said. I was already smiling. Old habit. The kind you don't even know you have until it's the only thing keeping your face from collapsing. Listen. I'm calling because... I've organized it. The Hawaii trip. You know, the one the whole family's been talking about? I didn't remember any family discussion. But Mark talked about a lot of things when I wasn't listening closely enough. Oh, when are we going? Next Wednesday. A week. We're flying out early morning. I've got the hotel booked already. Villa with an ocean view. That sounds wonderful, I told him. But next Wednesday, that's so soon. I have that client presentation on. He cut me off gently. Yeah, about that. It's just, the villa only sleeps 6, and I've already invited everyone. I knew what was coming. Some part of me had always known, but hearing it said aloud was different. Everyone? My voice was steady, deceptively calm. Like I was asking about the weather, my parents, my brother David and his girlfriend, my sister. That's 6. So you staying home means you can water the plants, you know? And look after the cat. I know how much you love that. I was holding a plate. I remember thinking, this is what my life feels like. Precarious. About to shatter. But it didn't shatter. It just sat there in my hands. Smooth and whole and entirely useless. And hey, I'll bring you back something. Macadamia nuts, okay? You love those. Macadamia nuts. As if that was a fair trade for being erased from my own marriage. That's nice of you, I heard myself say. I knew you'd understand. You always do. You're the most understanding wife. Understanding. That word would haunt me later. Understanding had become another word for complicit, for weak, for someone who says yes when she should be saying no. He got off the phone after that, said he had another meeting, said he loved me. And I stood in my kitchen with a plate in my hands and the lamb shanks getting cold on the table, and I felt something inside me start to shift. 2 hours later, I called Jennifer. My best friend since college. We were roommates once. The kind of friend who knows you better than you know yourself. She was in London for work, but it was late, and I called anyway. Babe, why are you calling at this hour? She sounded alert, even though it had to be after midnight there. You look like someone told you to smile for a passport photo. Jen, can I ask you something? And I need you to be honest, always. Am I a pushover? There was a pause. Jennifer's face on the video screen went very still. Who hurt you? And I need names and addresses. I almost laughed. It's not like that. It's just, Mark called. The family's going to Hawaii next week. Without me. Another pause. Longer this time. Sarah, listen to me. I've watched you for 3 years. I watched you stop wearing the dresses you loved because Mark said professional women dress a certain way. I watched you put your mother on hold because Mark's family needed your attention. I watched you do everything right, and did he ever actually want you? That question broke something open in me. The dam I'd built, brick by brick, for 3 years. I think he might be seeing someone else, I said. What makes you say that? He's been staying late at the office, every night. He says it's a big project, but, Jen, his phone is always locked. We have separate accounts. He handles his own money. And the way he looks at me lately, it's like I'm furniture. I could hear Jennifer typing on her end. That sharp, purposeful typing that meant she was already solving the problem. Okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to access his computer when he's not home. You're going to find out what's really happening. I can't do that. He trusts me. Sarah, he doesn't trust you. He's excluding you. There's a difference. And the fact that you're worried about violating his trust when he's actively deceiving you tells me everything I need to know about how he's conditioned you to think. In that moment, I made a choice. I didn't know it would change everything, but I made it anyway. I'll do it, I said. Atta girl. Call me when you find something. And Sarah, you're not a pushover. You're just someone who loved the wrong person. There's a difference. I hung up the phone and sat very still in the dark. Somewhere in this house, my husband had hidden something from me, and I was finally ready to find out what it was. Mark was at a client dinner, or so he said. It was Thursday, 8:47 p.m., and I had maybe 4 hours before he'd be home. The study door had always been locked. He said it was business sensitivity, confidential files, privacy, all the normal things a person says when they're hiding something. I had a key, the emergency key, from when we first moved in. I'd never used it, never wanted to. The study was immaculate, too immaculate, like a room in a magazine, nothing out of place, nothing that told you anything about the man who sat there. The desk was clean. The bookshelves were organized by color, which I didn't even know we were doing. Everything was perfect, which meant everything was a lie. I found the first thing almost immediately. In the bottom drawer, buried under folders marked with client names, a small safe, the kind you might put jewelry in, or secrets. Our anniversary was May 14th. Mark had habits. Passwords were always dates. His mother's birthday, his birthday, numbers that meant something. I tried his mother's birthday first. Nothing. His birthday. Nothing. And then, almost as a joke, I tried his mother's birthday again, but in a different order. It worked. Inside, there were photographs. Him with a woman, a younger woman, blonde. They were at a resort. He was holding her from behind, both of them laughing. And in the corner of the photo, the date stamp, August 2021. 3 months into our marriage, I found more photographs, each one like a small violence against everything I thought I knew. There was a receipt from a jewelry store. Cartier, a diamond bracelet. Cost, $47,000. Purchased on May 14th, our anniversary. Except he'd given me roses. Red roses that he picked up at a grocery store on his way home. Clearance roses that were already starting to wilt. I remember thinking, he gave me grocery store roses, and then I found a bank statement. Multiple accounts, offshore accounts. Money moving in patterns that made no sense unless you were trying to hide it. And then I saw the name on the wire transfers. Victoria Chen. Regular deposits, monthly. $50,000 a month for 3 years. $180,000 a year. Nearly $2 million over the course of our marriage. My hands were shaking. I could barely hold the paper steady enough to read what Mark had written next to Victoria's name in his own handwriting. 3 words. My real wife. I sat there on the floor of his study for what felt like hours. But it was probably only minutes. My eyes were reading the words over and over. Like, if I read them enough times, they might start to mean something different. But they didn't. They just meant the same thing. They meant that I had never been his wife at all. I had been his cover. I had been the respectable choice, the one who made him look good at company events. And Victoria was the choice he'd actually made. I put the photographs back. I put the receipt back. I put the bank statement back. But I took pictures of everything with my phone first. All of it. And then I called Jennifer back. I sent her everything. The photographs, the bank statements, the jewelry receipt, wire transfer confirmations, everything. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called a lawyer. The lawyer was named David Chen. No relation to Victoria Chen, though I never confirmed this. He had a calm voice, professional, the kind of voice that had probably heard every version of this story before. I need to know if there's a way to protect what's mine, I told him, before my husband takes it. Start from the beginning, he said. So I did. I told him everything. The separate accounts, the hidden money, the offshore transactions, the woman, the jewelry receipt, dated to our anniversary. By the time I was finished talking, David Chen was asking me very specific questions about what I owned and what my husband owned and what we owned together. The house, he said at one point. How is it titled? It's in my name. My parents gave me the down payment. My income qualifies for the mortgage. Good, he said. And in that one word, I heard something shift. I heard a possibility opening up that I didn't even know existed. That night, I waited for Mark to come home. But I didn't sleep. I just sat in the dark with all the evidence of my marriage's collapse arranged neatly in front of me, and I waited. He came home at 11:47 p.m. I know because I watched the clock. I'd been sitting in the dark living room for 3 hours, just waiting. The photographs were on the coffee table in front of me. The bank statements, the jewelry receipt, everything. I heard the front door open, keys being set down. The sound of a man loosening his tie. Sarah, you home? His voice was relaxed, happy, even. Like a man with no guilt. Like a man who believed his wife would never know. I didn't turn on the lights. I'm here. He stopped moving. I could hear his breathing change. Why are all the lights off? Sit down, I said. Still quiet. Still in the darkness. Sarah, what is... Sit. Down. I heard him walk slowly into the living room. And then I turned on a small lamp. Just enough light to see his face as he saw what was on the table. He went very pale. These are private, he said. How did you... Victoria Chen, I said. Not a question. Who is she? Long pause. Sarah, I can't explain. That's not what I asked. Who is she? He was choosing his words very carefully now, like a man trying to defuse a bomb. She's someone I met before I met you. We have a history. A history. For 3 years. During our marriage. $1 million to $800,000 history. And you gave me grocery store roses on our anniversary. He didn't say anything to that. You don't understand, he started. You were always so practical, so focused on building a life, a future. Victoria, she makes me feel alive. There it was. The explanation that explained nothing. The excuse that was somehow worse than admission of guilt. He hadn't been drawn to Victoria because I wasn't enough. He'd been drawn to her because I was too much, too stable, too present, too real. Did you love her while we were saying our vows? I asked. I don't know. Did you touch her before or after you told me you couldn't have children with me because of stress at work? Sarah, how many times did you lie? How many times did you look me in the eye and tell me you loved me while she was waiting for you somewhere? He got angry then. His mask slipped. I'd never heard him sound like this before. Raw, honest, cruel. You want to know the truth? I married you because my parents thought you were appropriate. You were safe, reliable, boring. Victoria makes me feel like I'm actually living instead of just going through the motions. And you were fine with being left behind. You were always fine with it. In that moment, I understood something crucial. He was never going to apologize. He was never going to feel sorry. To him, this wasn't betrayal. It was just life. And I was the problem for not understanding. Pack a bag, I said. What? Pack a bag. You're leaving. Tonight. This is our house. I'm not going anywhere. This house is in my name. My parents gave me the down payment. My income qualifies for the mortgage. My name is on the deed. So you have 1 hour to pack what fits in a suitcase, or I'm calling the police and telling them you're trespassing. I stood up. I felt him follow me toward the kitchen, his voice rising. Sarah, don't do this. We can work through this. People make mistakes. I made a mistake. I turned to face him, and I heard my own voice come out crystalline with certainty. You didn't make a mistake, Mark. A mistake is something you do once. Regret. Try to fix. You made a choice. Every single day. For 3 years, you chose her. You chose to lie. You chose to hide money. You chose to exclude me from your family's life. So what? You're just going to throw away 3 years? No. 3 years ago, you threw us away. I'm just finally accepting it. I walked upstairs. I didn't look back. I packed one suitcase with the things that felt most like me. Some clothes, my laptop, the photographs, both the betrayal ones and the ones from before, the ones where I still looked happy, my grandmother's jewelry, my passport. Behind me, I could hear Mark calling up the stairs, his voice cracking, begging, almost. You'll regret this. You'll come back to me. You always do. That's when I realized the most terrifying thing. He believed I needed him more than he needed me. He believed that I would always come back, that my love was so conditional on his presence that I would eventually forgive anything, everything, anything to not be alone. But he was wrong. I came back downstairs with my suitcase. Mark was standing in the living room, and his face looked different now. Shocked. Like he'd finally realized I wasn't joking. Like the woman standing in front of him with a suitcase in her hand was not the same woman he'd married 3 years ago. I walked past him to the front door. Sarah, wait. Wait. Let's talk about this. I didn't wait. I opened the door. The night air hit my face, and it felt cold and clear, and like possibility. Goodbye, Mark, I said. I didn't hear his response. I was already walking to the car. I was already starting the engine. I was already driving away from the house that was in my name, the marriage that was never actually mine, the life that I had been living for someone else. And I realized something as I drove through the dark streets of the city. I didn't feel sad. I felt scared. I felt uncertain. But underneath all of that, I felt something that I hadn't felt in 3 years. I felt alive. Jennifer's lawyer friend came through faster than I expected. His name was David Chen, no relation to Victoria, though the irony wasn't lost on me, and he specialized in financial crime and divorce. That was his actual title, financial crime. Which meant I'd married a man who was committing actual crimes, and I just hadn't known it yet. I met him in his office 3 days after I left Mark. The office was exactly what you'd expect from a lawyer. Expensive, austere, a wall of books that looked like they'd been color-coded by someone with too much time and too little else to organize. Your husband has been hiding money, David said. Not as a question, as a statement of fact. He had a folder in front of him, and inside were spreadsheets, actual spreadsheets, columns of numbers that somehow added up to the destruction of my entire life. How much money? I asked, conservatively. $2.3 million. I think I stopped breathing. I'm pretty sure I stopped breathing. How is that possible? We have a joint account. I see our joint account has $80,000 in it. That's approximately what he allows you to see. The rest of his income, and he makes significantly more than you think, by the way, goes into accounts you don't have access to. Offshore accounts, cryptocurrency holdings, brokerage accounts under shell company names. He's been very methodical about it. For how long? Since before you were married. But the pattern accelerated 3 years ago, right around the time he met Victoria Chen. David slid a photograph across the desk. It was one I hadn't seen before. Mark and Victoria at what looked like a restaurant, his hand on her lower back. The kind of touch that says ownership. She's not just a girlfriend, David said. She's part of the financial structure. They have joint accounts. They own property together. A condo in Miami that's titled in her name only, and he's been transferring money to her at an accelerating rate. The most recent transfer was $75,000, 3 days ago. 3 days ago. That was the day after I left him. He's moving money, I said. He knows I found out, and he's moving money. Yes, which is why we need to move fast. I'm going to file for an emergency asset freeze. That means any accounts he tries to access, we can flag them. But we have to do this now. Today. Are you ready for that? I looked at the spreadsheets. I looked at the photograph of Mark with Victoria. I looked at David Chen's face, which was calm and professional and utterly certain about what needed to happen next. Yes, I said. I'm ready. The asset freeze was filed that afternoon. By evening, Mark's accounts were locked. By the next morning, the financial institutions had sent official notifications to both of us, informing him that any transfers would require written consent from his spouse or a court order. The response was immediate. He called me 4 times. I didn't answer. The 5th time, I did. What did you do? His voice was shaking, angry and scared in equal measure. I protected myself, I said. You had no right. That money is mine. I earned that money. Money earned during a marriage is marital property, I said. David had given me talking points. Simple things to say. Unarguable things. I have a right to half of it, and I have a right to make sure you don't hide it from me. You're destroying me, he said. No, I told him. You destroyed this marriage. I'm just being honest about what was already broken. He hung up after that. The discovery process took weeks. David had to subpoena records. Banks had to be compelled to produce statements. Accountants had to trace the flow of money through multiple shells and accounts and hidden transfers. But when they did, the picture became clear. Mark had been planning something. Not a divorce. Something else. Something bigger. David called me into his office on a Friday afternoon, and he had a new folder. This one was thicker than the first. I found what he was planning to do, David said. He was going to take the house. The house? Your house. The one in your name. He was planning to forge your signature on a refinance document. Take out a home equity loan for $2.1 million. Use the house as collateral. Then default on the loan, let the bank foreclose, and split the insurance payout with Victoria in a way that wouldn't trace back to him. I felt something inside me go very still. He was planning to steal my house? Not just your house. Your parents' gift. The security net they gave you. Everything. He was going to steal it and make sure you couldn't prove it was deliberate. It would just look like a failed loan. A bad decision. Your bad decision, since your name is on the title. How do you know this? Because I found the forged documents. He had them drafted by someone. Very professional forgery. They're in a folder on his work computer, and his IT department still has backups. We recovered them. I don't remember leaving David's office. I remember the hallway, the elevator, the street outside, the way the city looked exactly the same even though everything had changed again. That night, I called Jennifer. He was going to steal my house, I told her. Oh, honey, she said. And I could hear her sit down on the other end of the line, bracing herself for what came next. He forged my signature. He was going to take out a loan I didn't authorize, make it look like I agreed to something that would have destroyed me financially. That's forgery, Jennifer said. That's a federal crime. I know. Are you going to press charges? I thought about it. I thought about Mark in a federal prison. I thought about Victoria visiting him. I thought about how satisfying that would feel, and how hollow it would probably be afterwards. Not yet, I said. Let me think about it. But even as I said it, I knew something had shifted. This wasn't about protecting myself anymore. This was about making sure he never did this to anyone else. This was about justice. And justice, I was learning, required a very different version of strength than I'd been using so far. The next 2 weeks were about building a case. David had me document everything. Every conversation, every transaction, every lie. He had me write out a timeline of our entire marriage, marking the dates when I realized something was wrong, the exact moments when I should have known but didn't. It was humiliating. It was also clarifying. I showed up in my marriage with everything: my parents' money, my income, my time, my faith in him. And he showed up with a plan. A calculated, multi-year plan to take what I had, hide what he earned, and make sure that when it all fell apart, I would be the one left holding the wreckage. Mark's response to the asset freeze was escalation. First, he tried to contact me directly. Called my office. They wouldn't put him through. Called my apartment. I didn't answer. Left voicemails that ranged from desperate to threatening. I know this is hard, but we can fix this. We can work through this. Don't throw away what we built. Then, you're being unreasonable. You always do this. You overreact, and then you come back when you calm down. Then, you think you're so strong now, but you're not. You're going to regret this. You're going to regret all of this. Then, I have a right to my money. I have a right to my life. You can't just steal from me. Then, finally, I'm coming to see you. I don't care what your lawyer says. I'm your husband, and we need to talk. I saved every single message. David told me to. He said they'd be useful later. What Mark didn't know was that by the time he was threatening to come see me, I'd already documented everything. I'd already given David permission to file for divorce. I'd already hired a forensic accountant who was backtracking every transaction for the past 5 years. I'd already agreed to cooperate with federal investigators who wanted to look into whether the forgery constituted wire fraud. But I wasn't done yet. David had a plan, and it required Mark to believe he still had the upper hand. He's going to try to manipulate you, David said. He's going to try to make you feel guilty. He's going to try to make you think you're being unreasonable. He might even try to make you feel like you're the villain in this story. We need you ready for that. I'm ready, I said, but I wasn't. Not really. Because nobody is ever really ready for the moment when someone you trusted shows you exactly who they are. Mark came to my apartment on a Thursday evening. I buzzed him in because I was supposed to, because the plan required me to let him in. He looked terrible, worse than the last time I'd seen him. His face was gaunt, his eyes were red-rimmed. He'd lost weight, and not in a healthy way. He looked like a man who'd been going through something. When he saw me, something in his expression shifted. For a moment, I saw something that looked like genuine pain. "Sarah," he said. And just hearing him say my name like that, like it meant something, like he meant something, I felt my resolve wobble for just a second. "Mark," I said. "I miss you," he said. I know you don't want to hear that, but I do. I miss you." "I don't believe you," I said. "It's true. This has all been insane. Victoria was a mistake, a huge mistake. But it doesn't change what we had. It doesn't change what we could still have." I wanted to laugh, but it would have sounded like crying, so I didn't. "Mark, you forged my signature. I didn't. We have the documents. We have your IT department's backups. We have the forensic trail. We know you were planning to refinance my house without my consent, take out a loan in my name, and then default on it so you could collect on the insurance." His face went white, actually white, like all the blood had drained from his head. "Where did you get that information?" "That doesn't matter. What matters is that it's real, and it's documented, and my lawyer already gave it to the federal authorities." He sat down on my couch like his legs had stopped working. For a long moment, he just sat there, staring at nothing. "I wasn't going to do it," he said finally. I was just thinking about it, planning. It was never going to actually happen. The documents were finalized, Mark. The signatures were forged. That's not planning. That's conspiracy to commit fraud." "You're going to destroy me," he said. And his voice sounded different now, smaller, like the man in front of me was actually smaller than I'd thought, and the illusion of his size had just been my own fear. "No," I told him. You did that yourself. I'm just not going to save you from it anymore. He tried to convince me after that. Tried different angles. Appealed to my sense of history. Reminded me about good times that I'm still not even sure were real. Suggested that maybe we could work things out if I just dropped the financial investigation and the potential criminal charges. I'll give you anything you want, he said. Money, the house, whatever you need. Just, please, don't do this. I'm not doing anything, I said. You did this. I'm just letting it happen. And that was the difference between the old Sarah and the new one. The old Sarah would have found a way to rescue him. Would have convinced herself that it was her job to fix this, to make it better, to sacrifice her own well-being to keep him from consequences. The new Sarah watched him fall and didn't reach out a hand to catch him. After Mark left, I sat in my apartment in the dark, and I realized something. Forgiveness is only possible when someone asks for it. Real forgiveness, not the kind where you swallow the pain and pretend you're fine. He'd never asked for my forgiveness. He'd just asked me to erase what he'd done and move on like it never happened. I wasn't going to do that. The first I heard from Mark's family was a phone call from his mother. It came 2 weeks after Mark's visit to my apartment at 8 in the morning on a Tuesday, and her voice on the phone was sharp with something that might have been anger or might have been fear. Is it true? She asked. No preamble, no hello. Who is this? It's Margaret, Mark's mother. Is it true that you're trying to destroy my son? I was very calm when I answered. Clarity has a way of doing that. I'm not trying to destroy anyone. I'm protecting myself. By taking his money? By accusing him of crimes he didn't commit? He forged my signature, Margaret. Multiple times. He was planning to commit wire fraud. That's not what he told us. What did he tell you? There was silence on the other end of the line. He said you were upset about the divorce, and you were making up lies to hurt him financially. He said you were trying to punish him because he'd found love with someone else. I almost laughed. I didn't, but I almost did. Margaret, your son has been hiding $2 million in offshore accounts while telling me we needed to watch our spending. He's been maintaining a secret relationship with another woman the entire time we've been married. He forged official documents with the intent to defraud me. These aren't lies. These are crimes. You can't prove any of that. Actually, I can. I have bank statements. I have forensic accountant reports. I have his own IT department's backups of the forged documents. Well, you're wasting your time because Mark's family will back him up. We'll hire the best lawyers. We'll fight you every step of the way. That's your choice, I said. But the evidence is what it is. She hung up after that, but it was just the beginning. Over the next week, I received letters from Mark's father's lawyer, demands that I drop the criminal investigation, threats of countersuits, claims that I was attempting to extort money from a member of their family. It was all standard intimidation tactics, David said. Rich families did this sort of thing all the time. Then Mark's sister called. She was softer than Margaret, but the message was the same. Mark was sorry. He'd made mistakes. Couldn't we all just find a way to move forward without destroying him? He tried to steal my house, I told her. That's not. Mark wouldn't do that. He's not that kind of person. He's exactly that kind of person. He did it. I have proof. But he's still your husband. Not for much longer, I said. The voicemail from Mark's brother came while I was at work. His voice was colder than everyone else's. You should know that there are people who don't take kindly to women who turn on their family. You might want to think about what happens when you push people too far. David listened to the voicemail twice, then saved it without comment. That's a threat, I said. Yes, David said. What do we do about it? We keep it. We don't respond. And we add it to the file. But what David didn't tell me, what I didn't find out until later, was that Mark's family had started their own investigation. Not into his crimes, into me, into whether there was anything in my past they could use against me. Any indiscretion, any mistake, anything that would make a judge question my credibility. They found nothing, of course, because there was nothing to find. But the search itself was invasive. It was meant to be. It was meant to make me understand that going against Mark meant going against all of them. And they had resources, and they would use them. It was also a miscalculation, because what it did was prove exactly what David had suspected. Mark wasn't acting alone. His entire family was conspiring to protect him from the consequences of his own actions. And that conspiracy, once documented, became relevant to the case. The week before the first court hearing, David got a call from the federal prosecutor's office. They wanted to meet with me. They'd been looking into the forgery allegations, and they'd found something interesting. Mark had paid a notary public to notarize documents without actually being present for the signing. That's an additional crime, the prosecutor said. Notary fraud. He's looking at felony charges now. How many felonies? I asked. 3 counts of wire fraud, 2 counts of forgery, 1 count of conspiracy to commit fraud, 1 count of notary fraud. What's the sentence? Consecutive? He could be looking at 15 to 20 years. I felt something shift in my chest. Relief, yes. But also something else. The weight of what I'd started. This wasn't going to be resolved by a settlement or a negotiated agreement. This was going to end in prison. Are you okay? David asked. I realized I was staring at nothing. I don't know, I said. Ask me after the trial. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. I'd watched enough law shows to think it would be grander somehow, more dramatic. But it was just a room with wood paneling and a judge's bench, and a place for Mark to sit with his lawyer, and a place for me to sit with mine. He looked smaller than I remembered, like something had collapsed inside him over the past few weeks. His suit didn't fit right. His hair had gone gray at the temples. He looked like a man who'd finally understood that consequences were real. The prosecutor laid out the case with methodical precision. Bank statements, wire transfer records, the forged documents, the notary's testimony, the cryptocurrency accounts. All of it, piece by piece, building a picture of a man who had lived a double life with such careful calculation that it had required federal investigators months to untangle. Mark's lawyer tried to argue that Mark had been under stress, that Victoria had manipulated him, that the forgery was just a fantasy, something he'd contemplated but never actually intended to execute. But he did execute it, the prosecutor said. He had the documents drafted. He had them notarized. All that was left was the final step. Which never happened, the defense attorney countered. Because my client found out, the prosecutor said, gesturing to me. Because the defendant's wife discovered the evidence and reported it to authorities. If she hadn't, the crime would have proceeded to completion. I watched Mark's face when the prosecutor said that. Watched him realize that I'd saved myself by turning him in, that there was no version of events where he came out of this intact. The trial lasted 3 weeks. By the end of it, I'd heard my entire marriage dissected by lawyers and accountants and forensic specialists. I'd heard Mark's explanations and his denials, and his eventual admission that yes, he had forged documents, but no, he'd never intended to use them. The judge didn't believe him. The evidence is clear, the judge said, his voice formal and absolute. The defendant engaged in a pattern of deliberate deception and criminal activity. The court finds him guilty on all counts. Sentencing was set for 2 weeks later. In that interim period, I did something I wasn't sure I should do. I went to see Mark, not in person, through video visitation at the holding facility. David tried to talk me out of it. There's nothing he can say that will change what happened, David said. I know, I told him. I need to do it anyway. Mark appeared on screen. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit. His face was different in person, older, more lined, like he'd aged a decade in a few weeks. Sarah, he said. Just my name. I wanted to hear you say it, I told him. I wanted to hear you admit what you did. I admit it, he said. I did it. All of it. I hid the money. I cheated on you. I forged your signature. I planned to commit fraud. I did all of it. Why? He was quiet for a long time. Because I could, he said finally. Because nobody had ever said no to me before. And when you married me, you said yes to everything. You were so grateful to have me, so eager to make me happy. And I realized that I could do anything, and you'd find a way to blame yourself for it. You'd find a way to make it your fault. It was never my fault, I said. I know that now, he said. But then I thought I could get away with anything. You almost did, I said. But I didn't. I didn't because of you. Yes, I said, because I finally decided to stop sacrificing myself to save you. He looked at me through the screen, and I saw something in his eyes that I'd never seen before. The realization that he'd thrown away something real and replaceable, and it was too late to get it back. The sentencing hearing was brief. The judge gave him 18 years, concurrent sentences on the wire fraud charges, consecutive on the forgery. He'd serve at least 12 before he was eligible for parole. Mark's mother was in the courtroom. I watched her face crumple as the judge pronounced the sentence. I didn't feel anything. I thought I would feel something, vindication, maybe, or satisfaction, but all I felt was tired. After it was over, David shook my hand. You did good work, he said. Your willingness to come forward, to provide evidence that made this prosecution possible. I didn't do it for that, I said. I did it for me. I know, he said. That's what makes it matter. 6 months later, I was sitting in a restaurant in Singapore with a woman named Emma. She was the head of HR at a multinational corporation that had offered me a job as their Asia-Pacific marketing director. The salary was 3 times what I'd been making. The position was one I'd only dreamed about. And the job was in a country where nobody knew my name, my face, or my story. You'll start in 3 weeks, Emma said. The company will cover relocation. Your apartment is already being sourced. Your team is already assembled. I looked out the window at the Singapore skyline, gleaming towers of glass and steel and possibility. Why me? I asked. Because you have the skills. Because you have the international experience. And because... Emma paused. We did our research. We know what happened. We know how you handled it. That kind of clarity, that kind of strength that's rare, that's valuable. I'd kept the media coverage of the trial minimal, but it had circulated. Woman's marriage exposed as elaborate fraud scheme. Divorce lawyer praises client's evidence collection. Federal prosecutors cite victim's bravery in securing conviction. The narrative had solidified into something almost heroic, and I wasn't entirely comfortable with that. I didn't feel brave. I just felt like someone who'd finally stopped being a victim. But maybe that's what brave is. The job began 2 weeks later. I moved into an apartment on the 32nd floor overlooking the Marina Bay. I had a team of 12 people who reported to me. I had a 7-figure salary and stock options and health insurance that actually covered therapy. I had a life that was entirely my own, built by my own choices and my own work. And I had closure. Or at least, I thought I did. That's why Mark's letter caught me off guard. It arrived at my apartment in Singapore, forwarded by the building management. He was allowed limited correspondence from the facility where he was being held. I almost didn't open it. I almost just threw it away. But something made me read it. Dear Sarah, I've had a lot of time to think about what I did. About who I am. About how I got here. I've been in this place for 6 months, and every single day I think about you. Not in the way I used to think about you, like you were supposed to fix me or save me or make my life better. I think about you as a person who made different choices than I did. I chose lies. You chose truth. I chose to hide. You chose to be honest. I chose to destroy what we had. You chose to protect what was yours. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it, and I know that now. I'm writing because I need you to know that I understand what I did was wrong, not because I got caught, but because I finally understood what it meant to hurt someone, what it meant to betray someone, what it meant to waste someone's love and their time and their faith. You were never the problem, Sarah. I was. You tried to make it work. You tried to be the best wife. And I repaid that by treating you like you didn't matter. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't change anything, but I needed you to hear it anyway. I needed you to know that I finally see who you are. And who you are is someone who's going to be fine. More than fine. Better than fine. You're going to have a life that's actually worth living, and it's going to be because you didn't let me be the excuse for why you couldn't. I hope you find happiness, Sarah. I really do. I hope you find someone who loves you the way you deserve to be loved. I hope you remember the good parts of our marriage, even though I made most of them into lies. And I hope that somewhere, somehow, you'll be able to forgive me, not because I deserve it, but because you deserve the peace that comes with letting go. Take care of yourself. Mark. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer. Then I took it out and read it again. Jennifer called me that night. It was morning in New York, and she was at the office, but she took the call anyway. He wrote to you, she said. It wasn't a question. How did you know? Because I'm your best friend, and I know him. And I knew that eventually he'd try to contact you one more time to get something from you, even if it was just emotional absolution. He apologized, I said. Did you forgive him? I thought about that. I thought about Mark sitting in prison. I thought about Victoria, who'd been exposed as a con artist with multiple victims and was facing her own set of charges. I thought about Margaret, Mark's mother, who still believed her son was a victim of my vindictiveness. I thought about the life I was building in Singapore, in an apartment on the 32nd floor overlooking Marina Bay, where nobody knew my name, except as a professional accomplishment. I let him go, I said. Is that the same thing? Close enough, Jennifer said. Close enough. After I hung up with Jennifer, I sat on my balcony and looked out at the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. A woman my age walked past my building with her daughter, both of them laughing about something. An old man was feeding pigeons by the water's edge. 2 teenagers were taking selfies in front of the Marina Bay sands. Life was happening all around me. Real life. My life. I thought about the woman I'd been 3 years ago. The one who sat in her husband's study finding evidence of his betrayal, and still wondered if somehow it was her fault. The one who tried to disappear so that other people could be comfortable. The one who thought that if she just tried hard enough, if she was just good enough, it would be enough. I didn't recognize her anymore. The woman I was now made decisions from a place of clarity instead of fear. I didn't second-guess myself constantly. I didn't apologize for taking up space. I didn't arrange my entire life around someone else's comfort. I got a promotion 6 months later. Marketing director became senior vice president of regional strategy. I started mentoring younger women in the company. I started giving talks about resilience and self-advocacy. I started dating someone who treated me like I mattered. And one day, 2 years after I left Mark, I got an email notification that he'd been released early on parole. I read the notification once. Then I archived it. I didn't feel anything about it. Not happiness that he was free, not fear that he might find me, not even satisfaction that he'd served his time. It was just information about a person from my past. He wasn't part of my present anymore. And more importantly, he was never going to be part of my future. That's when I truly understood what my lawyer had told me 3 years ago. Sometimes the victory isn't in destroying the other person. Sometimes the victory is in realizing that you don't need them destroyed to be whole, that you can just leave them behind and keep living. My phone buzzed. It was an email from a publisher. They wanted to turn my story into a book. Women's resilience in the face of financial abuse. How one woman rebuilt her life after profound betrayal. I almost declined. But then I thought about all the other women who might be sitting in their husbands' studies right now, finding evidence of betrayal and wondering if somehow it was their fault. I thought about how much I needed to hear from someone that it wasn't their fault, that leaving was brave, that choosing yourself wasn't selfish. I said yes, and 2 years after that, standing in front of an audience of 500 women, reading passages from my book and talking about the day I decided to stop being a victim and start being a survivor, I understood something I should have known all along. The best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's becoming so busy with your own life that you forget they ever mattered. I looked out at the audience. I saw women who were sitting where I'd Saturday, women who were trying to find the courage to leave, women who were wondering if they were strong enough to survive on their own. I saw myself in every single one of them. You are stronger than you think, I told them. You are more valuable than anyone who has made you question that. And the life you're going to build for yourself, the one that's just for you, without anyone else in it that's going to be worth everything you sacrificed to get here. As I spoke, I realized something. This whole journey, from that terrible night when Mark called about Hawaii, to this moment standing in front of hundreds of women, it wasn't about him at all. It was about me finding out who I was when I wasn't being defined by someone else's lies. Mark was in prison because of what he did, but I was standing here because of what I chose to do about it. That was the real victory.